Thank you, Madam President. This is Councilor Harris. There will be a Finance and Government Operations Committee meeting on Monday, October the 14th at 5 p.m. in the Council Committee Room on the 9th floor.
Councilor Benton.
There will be a Land Use Planning and Zoning Committee meeting on Wednesday, October 16th at 5 p.m. in the Council Committee Room on the 9th floor. And Madam President, there will also be an Intergovernmental Legislative Relations Committee meeting on Thursday, October 10th at 2 p.m. in the Council Committee Room on the 9th floor.
Thank you. Now, item 12, public hearings. We have AC 1911, Land Development Consultants, LLC, Agents for Circle K Stores, Incorporated, appeals the decision of the Environmental Planning Commission. And Mr. Melendez, you're here to explain this appeal.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the council. The issue in this appeal is whether or not a zone change should be approved where the Environmental Planning Commission determined that the proposed zoning is actually less advantage to the community than the existing mixed-use zoning. The EPC denied a zone change request to change zoning from MXL mixed use to non-residential commercial at the corner of Bridge and Old Coors Southwest. The EPC determined that the existing zoning is more consistent with the existing Bridge Boulevard Southwest major transit corridor because it will facilitate a mix of uses including multifamily, which promotes transit and pedestrian activity consistent with the ABC comp plan. The EPC also determined that some of the uses permitted in the NRC zone could have harmful impacts on adjacent properties, the neighborhood, and the community. In reviewing the decision of the EPC, the Land Use Hearing Officer determined that the EPC's policy rationale was well supported by the comp plan and that the appellant did not meet its burden of demonstrating that some uses would not be harmful or injurious to the community. Specifically, the record indicates that by approving the zone map amendment, packaged liquor sales would be permitted at this location under the NRC zoning where they are currently not permitted under the MXL zoning. The applicant did not show that those liquor sales would not present a harm to the community. The Land Use Hearing Officer is recommending that the EPC be affirmed and this zone map amendment be denied. At this time, the council has the option of accepting that recommendation and findings of the Land Use Hearing Officer, or you may accept that recommendation and adopt findings of your own now or at another meeting. You may reject the Land Use Hearing Officer recommendation, in which case the council will hold a full hearing on this matter at a later time. You will not hear from the parties tonight. To the extent you have questions about this matter, I'll do my best to answer them from the record before you.
Thank you, Mr. Melendez. Are there any questions from the council? If not,
Madam President.
Councilor Jones.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to accept the LUHO's recommendations and findings.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Motion passes. So next item, is that it? Correct?
Madam President, there's one more. It's AC 1912.
But we're done with that one. So AC 1912, Renee Horvath appeals the decision of the Environmental Planning Commission. Mr. Melendez.
Thank you, Madam President. AC 1912, the issue in this appeal is whether building height and front yard setback variances should be approved for a proposed subdivision in the northwest Albuquerque. The EPC granted the variance against the planning staff's recommendation, and that decision was appealed to the Land Use Hearing Officer. The Land Use Hearing Officer recommends that the appeal be granted and that the EPC be reversed and that those variances for building height and front setback be denied. The subject site that is the subject of this appeal is approximately 20 acres. It's bordered by the Petroglyphs National Monument, major public open space to the south. As a result of the City Council's adoption of the Integrated Development Ordinance, a new character protection overlay was developed for this particular property known as the Volcano Mesa Character Protection Overlay, or CPO 12. That was new as part of the IDO, and that had the effect of limiting building heights to 18 feet, except that 50% of the building footprint could be up to 26 feet. In addition, it had the effect of imposing some garage front setbacks that would help promote residential character and street frontage. The EPC approved variances to both height and front setback for those varying from the CPO 12 requirements. However, the LUHO, in its review of the EPC, determined that the EPC should be reversed because there are no special circumstances applicable to the subject property. In order to grant a variance, there must be a showing that there are special circumstances applicable to the property that don't generally apply to other property in the same district or vicinity, and that those special circumstances were created by natural forces or government action such as eminent domain. The land use hearing officer determined that that test could not be met and recommends that the EPC be overturned and that the variances be denied. And like with the last appeal, you may accept the recommendation and findings of the land use hearing officer, in which case the variances will be denied. If you reject that recommendation, we'll have a hearing on this matter at a later time. I'll do my best to answer questions if you have any from the record before you.
Counselor Betton.
Unless there are any questions from other counselors, I'm going to move that we accept the LUHO's recommendation and findings.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now on item 13, approvals. There are none. Item 14, final actions. So we have A, Peña Harris Sanchez Borrego, CSO 56. I don't know who wants to take that on.
Thank you, Madam President. This is Committee Substitute O-56. That is amending Article 12, Sections 2, 3, 5, and 8 of the City Charter, and amending Article 13, Section 4 of the City Charter. I move a due pass.
Second. There's a motion and a second for a due pass of Committee Sub O-56. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, anybody signed up for public comment? Administration? No? So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next item, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. This is Committee Substitute O-57, amending the lobbyist and lobbyist organization registration and disclosure ordinance at Sections 232, 233, 234, 235, and 237. I move a due pass.
There's a motion and a second for a due pass. Is there any discussion from the councilors? The administration, anybody signed up to speak?
Madam President,
Huh?
I apologize. I believe we have an amendment that staff has. I'm sorry. Yes, Madam President, I think we have one amendment that's available. All right.
Okay, yes, I don't have it in front of me, so.
I'll read it if it's okay, Madam President. It's just very simple. I would make a motion to approve floor amendment number 1 to 1957. On page 2, line 25, strike the word before and replace within 48 hours. This amendment allows lobbyists to register with the city clerk within 48 hours of taking any lobbyist actions rather than being required to register before doing so. This is an opportunity for lobbyists to get engaged with emergency actions or items that we might put on an emergency agenda without having to register and take the online class before being able to engage with us on emergency matters.
There's a motion and a second for floor amendment number 1. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Back on the bill.
Ms. Mayor, I had a couple of comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Council President Peña. I just wanted to say thank you to all of the councilors for working together on this packet of reforms. It's been a long time coming, and I know we had a lot of issues we had to sort through, but we got there, and we really appreciate your taking action on these bills.
Thank you, and I want to thank Katie. I don't know if she's, oh, there she is. I don't have my contact on, so I can't see out there. Councilor Sanchez.
Basically, I was going to do the same thing and thank our city clerk for the work that she has done. This was a collaborative effort, and there was a lot of discussion and issues that came about with the lobbyist ordinance along with the ethics bill, but I think this will better serve the taxpayers of this community, and it'll put more responsibility on elected officials. And I urge your support.
Thank you. With that, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now on O-73. Councilor Davis.
Thanks, Madam President. O-73 relates to the redevelopment, leasing, and sale of MR projects and the issuance of MR bonds payable from rental payments therefore, and approving the Metropolitan Redevelopment application entitled Broadstone Nob Hill Metropolitan Redevelopment Bond Application. I move a due pass.
Here's a motion and a second for a due pass of O-73. Is there any comments from the council? Anybody signed up to speak? Administration, no. So Counselor Davis to close.
Urge your support.
So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next item, Counselor Benton.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll move a due pass on Committee Substitute 076. And this is amending Chapter 2, Article 6, Part 11 of the Revised Ordinances of Albuquerque, the Public Safety Tax Advisory Board Ordinance, to redefine the composition, roles, and responsibility of the Public Safety Tax Review Board.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any questions from the council? Anyone signed up to speak? Administration, Counselor Benton to close.
Yeah, I just want to express my appreciation of the administration to work on this. Counselors, you know, this was a an advisory board that we were hoping was going to come into place some time back, but in retrospect, the makeup of the board and the nominating procedures were not very realistic given people's time and ability to serve. So, and things have evolved with regard to the use of the tax. So I think this is going to be a more focused board to keep an eye on these matters, and a much more functional in its makeup. So urge your support.
So there's a motion and a second for Committee Sub 076. All those in favor say yes. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now on item F, R 197.
Madam President, excuse me, if I may, I was just going to ask if perhaps we could consider item G, 01977, because there, the amendment that's coming up that does have something to do with both of them. So if you wouldn't mind, could we consider hearing item G before R197?
Well, it's not up to me. I think if there's a motion and a second on the floor. it would-
Okay, I'd like to make that motion that we change the order and hear G and then F.
No. So, before we go to that, is there any discussion? Because I really cannot support going to 077 unless we've kind of determined what the projects are. I would vote against that. Counselor Harris?
Yeah, the thing about a bond ordinance is that counselors have a tremendous amount of leverage. As Counselor Sanchez has pointed out recently, that there were only 3 counselors who killed the streetcar, and I was one of them. Counselor Winter, you were one of the other 3, part of that 3. But in any event, it's that way on a purpose. There has to be real broad consensus in order to pass a bond, and you need 7 votes. So I think that we're going to need 7 votes on an ordinance on the underlying resolution, or else the ordinance isn't going to pass. So why bother? Because I think if there's a few counselors who are unhappy with the resolution, then those same counselors are going to vote against the ordinance. So we might need to defer this until 2 weeks if we're struggling a little bit, but we need broad consensus on whatever we're going to pass by 7 votes.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask staff, because I think the argument's being made, and I understand the argument. How would this work if in the event this were to pass and the resolution were not to pass? How would this work, Ms. Yara?
Yes, Madam President, councilors, so if the council were to take up the bond ordinance before the resolution that's making the appropriations, that would actually be fine. The council then could come later with a resolution at a later date to make those appropriations and set those project scopes. The time sensitivity is more lies with the ordinance than the resolution. As the ordinance is drafted, it contemplates an October 16th pricing and a sale on November, I think, 13th. So If the council were to defer the ordinance tonight, I believe our bond counsel and financial advisor would then have to amend the ordinance and set different pricing and issue dates so that they are in compliance with their 30-day requirements.
Counselor Jones, followed by Counselor Sanchez.
Thank you,
then
Madam.
Gibson.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Yara, but that's done fairly often. I remember we do this the day of issue sometimes, or certainly the day before the issue.
Madam President, Counselor Jones, yes. We just need to give our bond counsel and advisor enough time to make that happen.
Thank you. So if I may, Madam President, so it's not extraordinary at all for this to happen. It's just adjust some of the things that are happening in it.
Madam President and Counselor Jones, yes. And then there's also a consideration of the interest rates and where they'll move.
Yeah.
And we rely on our advisor in that
If I
case.
may, Madam President, I've checked with a few people, and the odds of it going up or down very much are pretty slim and none for the next 30 days or so, unless, someone drops the atom bomb. But thank you, Ms. Yara.
Counselor Sanchez, followed by Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe it's the discretion of the president that sets the agenda. And currently, right now, the order is item F, R-197, followed by item G, that's O-77. So I would hope that the council president's discretion is upheld here.
Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. Actually, item G, which is the bond issue, talks about the bond issue for the lodger's tax, already precedes the resolution for the, oh, wait a second, where is it? I just lost it. That's what I'm saying is that is already preceding on the agenda, the resolution that lists the uses. Item F, if I'm not mistaken, is amending the CIP. So what I'm
Madam-
suggesting is that we just hear the ordinance before the CIP, because there is an amendment that's coming up, I understand, that has to do with both.
I'd like the staff to clarify that.
Yes, Madam President and Counselor Gibson. So R-197 is amending the capital program to specifically make the appropriations of this lodger's
You're
tax
right.
bond money. If
Corrected.
the council were to act on the resolution and then for some reason defer or not pass the ordinance, then basically the resolution becomes moot because there's not any proceeds to allocate or to appropriate, so.
Yes, and then, Counselor Davis.
And Madam President and Ms. Yara, just correct me, and Mr. Melendez, remind me, the resolution is contingent upon the amount of funds that we believe will be available when the bonds are sold, which has been determined by bond counsel. And so were this council to pass seems to me that we need to know how much money we have available before we allocate it to projects, is normally our process. But if the council were to amend the resolution to a different number and add or remove funds that don't match the other, or defer, we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board, right? I'm making a case, I think, that traditionally we determine how much money we have for these projects, we pass those, then we make determinations on how to spend those. Is that our traditional process for this?
Madam President and Counselor Davis, so I've seen it happen both ways. There has been the case where bonds are issued and several months later, the council takes on a resolution to then make the appropriations. And in some cases, it happens on the same night as for final action, so.
Thank you. And Madam President, just to comment, I think I would just be concerned that I feel we could do a better job on the resolution with the projects, knowing fully what dollars we had available. So I think it's important to do the financial piece first.
Counselor Borrego.
Thank you. I think that it's the discretion of the president to determine the agenda. And I think based on that, and also the way that this has been presented to the public, there's already been allocations been discussed in the media, and I think that it's we should look at it as a package, and we should be looking at, are those allocations that have been discussed in the media appropriate or not appropriate? And I think that, we should look at this as an entire package.
So, Madam President, I just want to mention that Councillor Gibson's motion essentially is a motion to appeal the president's decision. If she wants to reword that motion, that is allowed under the council rules.
Thank you for that. Okay, I'm
It
sorry.
was Counselor Winter.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm just curious, so say we go to item, and we can't forget, I'm sure we've got lots of folks that are going to, from the public, are going to speak on both these bills, so we got to be mindful of that. But on G, if we were to do G first, and it would take 7 votes to pass G, is that correct?
Madam President, Councillor Winter, so this is a unique situation in that this ordinance is a combination of both refunding bonds and new money bonds. The refunding only needs a simple majority. For the actual new money bonds, you do need 7 votes. Otherwise, it will need to go out to the voters, at which point we only have the opportunity in 2020.
So, thank Madam President. So
Councilor Winter.
if this were to fail and we didn't get the 7 votes, then it's nil and we wouldn't have to go to the project. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Counselor Gibson.
So I do see our bond attorney here. Maybe we can get some clarity from him about the order in which these bonds, or these 2 bills are passed, and thank you, Mr. Muirhead.
Absolutely. Madam President, Councilor Gibson, I would concur with what Ms. Yara said. It can go either way, really. Normally, you would see, I think the most common approach is that the ordinance has some specificity into the projects. This does provide a broad definition of the projects, consistent with the Lodgers Tax Act, with the idea that the resolution would provide the specificity as that was worked out. However, as it's laid out, I think from a bond counsel perspective, I don't have a leaning that it has to be A versus B. It could go both ways. It is somewhat unique, but legislatively, I don't have a problem with it.
Counselor Harris.
And thanks. One question is that one of the reasons why the administration is seeking to kind of move this along fairly quickly, we want to take advantage of, there's some instability in the markets and some particularly low interest rates for municipal bonds. And it appears that that instability is going to last at least another few weeks. Would you agree with
Madam
that?
President, Councilor Harris, we have actually Mr. Harrigan, who is your financial advisor. I'm precluded from chiming in on anything monetary.
Yep.
But he's not. So let's get him up here.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, Madam President, Councilor Harris. So to answer your question, there's a lot of volatility in the market right now. And it's from several things. One, the geopolitical issues that we're seeing, the issues that, what's the long-term, long-term economy for not only the U.S. but also the world with what's been going on with the trade, and also with what's been happening with the Federal Reserve. At the last meeting in September, when the Federal Reserve cut rates, there was one additional dissent vote, which the market took, maybe they're a little bit more hawkish than they used to be. They have another decision that is coming up on October 30th, and the market's priced in a 90% chance of a cut. And I don't think it's really a question of what's going to happen in October, what the action is. It will be what is the discussion after that point, and then potentially what would happen in December. And right now the market's priced in about a 50% chance of that cut. So when you take all of these things that come into it, we've seen a significant jump of movement in interest rates. At the beginning of September, the 10-year Treasury was at a 1.47. 2 weeks later, it was at a 1.90, and now we're back down to a 1.57. So the rates are moving, and of course, I can't tell you what interest rates are going to do tomorrow, 2 weeks, or a month from now. But the sooner you can get into the market, the less interest rate risk you are going to take to try to maximize the amount of proceeds from the bond issue.
But the interest rate risk could be positive or negative too, right?
It could be, yes.
And that volatility tends to, in a way, stabilize the municipal bonds because we're safer compared to all that other nonsense, right? That's a technical term, but in other words, the municipal bonds are a relatively safe investment compared to, I guess the treasury bills are fairly safe too, but compared to the stocks, which I think is where most of the volatility is.
Yeah, Madam President and Councilor Harris, municipal bonds are also subject to that volatility in interest rates, yet they are considered a much safer investment due to the chance of return on investment. But it is impacted, the interest rates are impacted by what's going in the market, the trade issues, the Federal Reserve decisions, as well as supply. When you look at historically, going back the last 10 years, the 3 months that are historically the best time to be in the market are February, September, and October. And it's because of the amount of municipal debt that is being issued versus the amount of money that's looking to invest in those. Generally speaking, you see the lowest rates during those 3 months, generally speaking, over the last 10 years, and why we've recommended to target October as the pricing date for these bonds.
And that would be the sale time, because if we have a meeting, well, we will have a meeting in 2 weeks in October. Is that going to be pricing in the October market or not really?
It would be pricing on the back end of October. So generally what will happen is that we would post a preliminary official statement. That is the document that tells investors about the transaction. And we usually want to have about a week so that investors can digest the information and then sell the bonds a week later.
Okay, so we'd be right on the edge. If we didn't pass the ordinance tonight, but we passed it in 2 weeks, we'd be right on the edge of that window?
That's correct. We would be right on October 31st or the 1st of November.
Okay.
Counselor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Sanjay for his work. I know that he has worked expeditiously to get this done as quickly as possible because of the unpredictability in the market. And currently, I think the rate of interest that we are looking at paying is going to be about 2.2%, where currently we're paying over 4%. Is that not correct?
So, Madam President, Councilor Sanchez, that's correct. On the outstanding 2009A and 2009B bonds, the interest rate is roughly 4% on the A's and 4.25%. Part of this package is also refunding those 2 bonds for interest rate savings.
And with those savings, that's why we are looking at these different and various projects, correct?
Madam President, Councilor Sanchez, in part. Part of it is also due to the growth that the city has seen in lodger's tax. It also allows for that additional capacity, but this does play a critical component in the refunding, as the 2009 B bonds is expected to generate around $100,000 in annual debt service savings.
Thank you. And Councilor Gibson, I would hope that we as a council move very cautiously and carefully with this with the resolution and the ordinance. Again, it will require 7 votes to get the bonds sold. I would like to also hear, because I know there's different amendments in the resolution that we should look at in these different projects that are being introduced. But I mean, there's been a lot of work that has been put into this by the administration and by members of this council. And I just think if we're not very careful in moving forward with this, that if we do not have the 7 votes, then we're back to square one. And also, if we wait, possibly it would go to the voters in 2020, because we have not done it now. So, I mean, do we want to wait till 2020 to take this to the voters, not knowing the predictability of the, and the rates that we're going to be paying? I mean, that's also a major challenge that we're facing.
So, thank you. So, Mr. Melendez, can you explain that once again? Because I'm kind of fearful that if we move the agenda around, that there's not the required votes. And my understanding is that exactly what Councilor Sanchez, and I think you stated earlier, is that if we don't have the required votes, if there's 7 or less, if there's 6 votes, then it would actually be required to go to the voters in 2020. Is that correct?
Madam President, yes, to echo Ms. Yada's comments earlier on this item, if less than 7 votes are voted for this item, but it receives at least a majority, so 5 or 6 votes, the effect of that would be that it would require initial voter approval before the bond issuance authorization is effective. Madam President, I'd like to clarify that that's only for the new money. The refunding component would not be subject to that same voter requirement to the extent that that's significant. But there are 2 components to the money. Part of it is refunding and retiring old debt, and the other is project money.
That is correct. Mr. Aguilar, did you want to add anything to that?
Council President Pena, no, ma'am. Mr. Melendez is correct.
Okay, well, with that, I would ask Councilor Gibson to reconsider her motion. Councilor Jones?
Thank you, Madam President. Well, I'm hearing several things argued here, and I think one of the things we think about, what is the number one thing that the citizens of Albuquerque are very upset about today and don't like, that they didn't get a chance to vote on? And that would be the ART project, the ART project. This is something else that they haven't been able to weigh in on, and maybe they should get to. Personally, I don't believe we're going to worry that much about the bond problems, but there are a couple issues in here that I find very questionable as to be qualified for the requirements to be in the lodger's tax money. So I'm uncomfortable with several things here. I don't know how many of the people in here have looked at this, probably not very many, but perhaps rushing for the sake of rushing is not the right way to do things when we're looking at this scope of project, and most especially when we're not really sure. Tonight was the first time I've ever seen anything about what the West Side Visitors Center was, and I'm not sure if that is a real plan, but it looked great. So I think, ART was a good plan too that looked good, but who knows at this point whether it will be or not. So I think let's not rush into this because we're afraid of 1/4% or 0.5% on bond money. I think we're being pretty pound-wise and penny-foolish, perhaps, or the other way around, whatever the saying is. So I'm not sure that I'm anxious to rush into this without more information. Thank you.
I think the concern here is not necessarily, well, obviously the concern is the interest rate, but I don't think that's ultimately the concern with the motion that's on the floor. So I would ask Councilor Gibson to reconsider.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So the reason for my suggesting the change in order is so that we are more likely to get 7 votes just agreeing that these bonds should be sold. That's my intention here, is to advance this bill. So there's no hidden agenda. That's simply it. And I mean, there's a motion and a second.
Yep.
I would suggest that we just vote on it. And, and if it's the pleasure of this council to not change the order, then, then we shouldn't change the order.
So, yeah, we'll go to the vote. So there is a motion and a second to switch the order of the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying yes and raise your hand.
Yes.
Opposed, no? Raise your hand. No. So motion fails, so we are back on R-197.
Madam President.
Councilor Winter.
And I think that what we need to do is somebody make a motion to move the resolution, and then I don't know if we want to go for the amendments or we need public comment, because there's a lot of folks. I think we need to listen to public comment, because I know there's a lot of concern about projects, but there's a lot of concern about if we're moving too fast or if there was much input that they got. So that would be my suggestion.
Absolutely, Counselor Winter. So I think what I'll do is read in to the record R197, and then we will ask for public comment. So R197 is amending the adopted capital implementation program of the City of Albuquerque by approving new projects from the proceeds of the City of Albuquerque gross receipts tax, lodger's tax, refunding and improvement revenue bonds, Series 2019A. I move a do pass. So there's a motion, a second. We're on public comment. Calvin Davis, followed by Tim West, followed by Luis Hernandez, followed by Melissa Sanchez.
Hi, Madam President, councilors. Thanks for having me down. I'm here to talk about one small project within this big deal here, which is the bike pump track. And I want to tell you guys that it's the coolest thing. It's good for kids, good for the local community, and great for events. The UCI is the International Cycling Organization. Just this year, pump tracks has become an official cycling discipline. So they're going to be giving out in Switzerland 2 weeks from now the first Rainbow Stripes UCI jersey. This pump track is part of the Los Altos Bike Park master plan. I've been talking with David Simon, the Parks and Rec director, for probably the last 2 years, coaching him up on what this is. The timing seems to work out great. The USA is starting up a national series event. So if we're able to get one of these courses going, we could host one of the very first national pump track events and compete to host the World Championships here at our very own park. Hopefully we'll have some of our own riders in there. But, I would have loved to share a little video with you guys to give you a better idea of what this is. I know my time's short, but if you've ever seen the little Strider riders, the little push bikes, just imagine those kiddos can ride this, and more skilled professional level BMX, mountain bike, all bikes can ride this, skateboards, scooters, and so we can host events, bring more tourism, but at the same time, this is an investment that could be used 365 days a year. And I know it would be. We already have a great biking culture, so let's add to it. Thanks.
Thanks, Kelvin. Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Kelvin. Sorry to bring you back. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about your involvement in this sport and your experience with international BMX?
So this sport, biking, it is my thing. When it came time to go to college, the reason why I stayed in Albuquerque was because we had just built our amazing Veloport BMX track. That facility kept me in Albuquerque, kept me here with my family, and I've been training there. I've gone to 3 different world championship events all around the world: New Zealand, the Netherlands, Azerbaijan, if you know where that is. I was there last year. But anyways, it's a big deal for me. I coach up the little kiddos every day. I think this is a way to build up community and build up people. This is the way I see it.
And sir, also, can you tell us the difference between this track and the dirt track over in the by the stadium?
Yes, so simply put, these are different disciplines of cycling. Like, there's road biking, mountain biking, BMX biking. There's about 10 different kinds of mountain biking if you want to go into there. This is a different discipline. The BMX track by Isotopes, there's racing for up to 8 people. Pump track racing is more of a head-to-head and on timers. So it's 1 or 2 people at a time, and you race in timed head-to-head events versus totally 8 people. It's a one-on-one thing.
Counselor Borrego.
Calvin, I'm excited about what you're doing. I think it's really cool. So the BMX track at the stadium, is it too small for what you're thinking? Or, I mean, do you use it for for the bike pump track?
So,
Effort.
like I was saying, it's not that that track's too small, it's just a different discipline. It'd be like trying to ride your road bike in the Sandia foothills. It's both biking, but it's different things. So a pump track is a paved course with no jumps. It's all whoops and rollers and turns. And the BMX track is much larger, bigger jumps, bigger turns, a bigger facility overall. The actual pump track section that we're really advocating for is only about 20,000 feet in area.
Do you have any idea how many people use the BMX the one at the stadium? Is it used pretty often, every day?
It's used
know,
3 days a
seasonally?
week. We're open for practice on Wednesday. We race on Friday and we race on Sunday morning. We've got one of the biggest local sanctions in the whole country. We do compete. Some of the bigger tracks are in Phoenix and California, but we're in the top 10% of biggest clubs in the country, well used, and we host a big national event every year, which thanks to the city councilors of the past for creating that facility. I know that was actually a $5 million investment, and we've generated over $1 million in economic impact every year by hosting our national event. So I know we can create a huge impact with these bike events.
Thank you
And,
so much.
and
I-
one
I
other thing
really-
I'd wanted to share before I forgot, 850 people from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and all around the world signed my online petition saying they support this and build it now. So please do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tim West, followed by Luis Hernandez.
Yeah, as Calvin said, the kids will get involved with it. And the biggest difference is you don't pedal on this track. We pedal, when we race, we pedal all the way. You don't pedal, you push your bike. It's called pumping. And it's a different thing, you know, it's something that I want to learn. It's hard to do. It's like riding a wheelie without pedaling. It is, it's hard. You know, the impact, you know, I went to the Worlds, I went to Belgium in July this year. There was 3,500 riders there. And then all the people that were with them riders. You know, we could get something similar to that. I don't know if we get that many riders, but we could get, you know, pros over here, and it'll help kids develop their skills as well. And it's just an awesome thing. You know, I've raced BMX almost all my life. I drove sprint cars. You know, I started out BMX sprint cars, and now I'm on BMX again. You know, I'm 50 years old, and I won a championship over a 9-year-old kid. So, yeah. And it, you know, it's not what it seems like, but you know. but yeah, you know, it would help a lot. It would help a lot for, you know, the kids here. You know, we could get them involved. You know, Calvin, he works with kids every week. You know, Monday night. He's normally working with kids tonight, but he's here trying to get this passed for you guys to you know, help us out. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Luis Hernandez, followed by Melissa Sanchez, followed by Martha Grego.
Good evening, Madam President, City Council. My name is Luis Hernandez. I'm a lifelong West Side resident of 45 years. And, you know, I'm here to support the Route 66 Visitor Center. You know, this is a community project that, you know, it's been around in the works for years, and it's one that has come from the community, right? You know, the West Best, which recently happened a couple weeks ago, is that community event where the West Central Community Development Group is able to have the community members fill out surveys asking what they want, what they like to see, what types of amenities they like to see on the west side, specifically on the West Central Corridor. And this visitor center is one of those projects that the constituents requested to see, right? And so, you know, I simply put, urge you guys to support, you know, R 19197. But a more important point that I do want to bring, I think BMX racing is fabulous. I think softball is just as fabulous, right? What I also think is fabulous is supporting economic growth and development specific to the west side, right? An area of town that has been neglected for many, many years. I like to say that the entire city of Albuquerque was built on the backs of the west side area taxpayers for many years. And when we ask for something to happen on our side of town, we often are looked at sideways as to why would you want something magnificent to happen on that side of the river. And so for that, I'm simply asking that you support this as something that can be an economic driver for us on the west side of the river, right? Something that, as studies have shown, that the economic impact is great when you partner up, things like the Mother Road and the rich culture and history that we would support in that project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Counselor Sanchez.
Thank you. I just have a comment, Luis, regarding some of your comments. At Westfest, that was also discussed about the visitor center, but it goes a lot further back than that. It goes back to Think Big, when we used to have an event called Think Big, and we came up with a lot of different ideas during that event. And one of the ideas that did come up was an event center and a tourism center on Albuquerque's west side. So this goes back probably 10, 14 years.
Yes.
When we've discussed these issues. So it does take time to get things done. And I know that there's been a tremendous amount of work done by the community. I know you've been advocating for it, and many other people have been working on it. But again, it's been long overdue for many, many years.
It has. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Melissa Sanchez.
So good evening, Madam President and City Council. My name is Melissa Sanchez, and I am the Executive Director of the Albuquerque Westside Chamber of Commerce, and I am also here in support of the Route 66 Visitor Center. And as a Chamber of Commerce that is specifically focused on the area of development and growth on Albuquerque's west side, this gives the opportunity to support that growth here. And, I am currently working with the national company who is wanting to come in to do small business trainings, and one of our biggest obstacles is not having a facility on the west side to support these types of events. So because of this, I am here to urge that you do support this bill, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Melissa. Marta Griego, followed by Fred Mondragon.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Martha Griego, and I run youth fast pitch tournaments along with Paul Coleman for girls that range from age 9 all the way to age 18. With the support of Mayor Keller, Councilor Gibson, and Director Dave Simon, and their initiative to increase youth activities, we have been having more fast pitch tournaments in Albuquerque. In 2018, March through September, we had 10 events with 266 teams, of which 30% were from out of town. In the same time frame in 2019, we had 11 events with 404 teams, of which 41% were from out of town. And we have 3 more tournaments left in this year, which will add to the economic impact. This greatly impacts the lodger's tax for the city of Albuquerque, as well as the gross receipts tax for restaurants and other businesses. And it would be great to see improvements made to Los Altos and have a complex that would be versatile for all ages, including youth fast pitch. Thanks again for letting me speak, and I hope this happens because it would be a really great thing for the youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fred Mondragon, followed by Lorenzo Otero, followed by Ken Quintana.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I am chairman of the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board. The board had a presentation from the administration at the last meeting about a week and a half ago about the bonds. The board expressed disappointment that the Lodgers Tax revenue, or the Lodgers Tax bond issue, only provided about $3 million for the improvements at the convention center. The board has heard from the hospitality industry, from the convention center director, and from Visit Albuquerque, and as well as the Hispano Chamber, that our ability to recruit conventions is seriously hampered by the deficiencies in the convention center. The board recommended $6.5 million, and we came up with the board as a whole came up with a series of recommendations, which were presented last spring to the city council through a letter, as well as the administration. However, again, the recommendation is only for $3 million. Let me emphasize that the board has not taken a position in the individual projects except for the convention center. We have not made a recommendation either for or against any of the projects, contrary to what some people have been told. However, the board did hear from the hospitality industry urging more time to analyze the projects. The Lodgers Tax Advisory Board voted unanimously to support a deferral or some sort of a breather time to provide more feedback from the industry, the lodging industry, which generates, after all of the hospitality bonds, all of the lodgers tax. So again, this is something that we're conveying that information. We had a lot of people speak at the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board. Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Councilor Davis.
Mr. Mondragon, thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to follow up to some emails that I received from some lodgers folks, if you can help me, and I know some may be here.
Sure.
In your analysis at the convention center, I believe you all did an analysis on sort of what is the ROI on dollar invested back to our city and back to sort of room nights. Have y'all looked at that in terms of one of the analysis that you do in terms of evaluating the needs for the convention center?
Sure. The total amount that was recommended was $6.5 million, but it talks all about, the recommendations from the convention center director were for replacing the skylights on the west side. And by the way, I was involved in building that convention center more than 30 years ago. And
pretty
we
cool
had
then.
to make some compromises. And so I think the chickens are whatever, coming home to roost. Replace the west complex roof, $1.25 million. There are leaks all over the place. The east complex, $1.3 million. Vertical transportation, the Kiva Auditorium, and this is mentioned in this new bond, but again, $706,000. The east complex air walls are not operable, so we can't have conventions that can break up into different sections. The floors are getting ruined by the leaks on the ceiling. And again, a number of other needs. So I think the bottom line is there are needs to make serious improvements. It is affecting our ability to bring in conventions. And again, the convention center brings in, on a consistent basis, most of the people that spend money in Albuquerque, number one. Secondly, the hospitality industry generates, through the taxes they collect, the money for these improvements and for the lodgers tax bonds. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. And Madam President, if I could follow that up to Mr. Real and just ask, I realize that the roof is one of the items that was both on the Lodgers Board's recommendation and the mayor's list. But 2 years ago, this council passed a series of solar initiatives that included federal tax credits that would help us replace the roof as we installed solar panels to make the convention center green. And I know the administration has announced plans to begin doing that at some point soon. Do you know why we're asking for new money for the roof now instead of, or how it fits in with that plan and the project that the council already paid for with federal solar bonds?
Madam President and Councilor, Mr. Montoya is here from the Department of Municipal Development. His department did the assessment of the facility. But let me just say that the issue was the skylights that are there today are leaking, and that is part of the proposal with the money that is available through these bonds to fix the skylights. The idea was to we entertained the idea of potentially using the solar panels in lieu of the skylights so that we would get, if you will, a 2-for-1 opportunity, in such that we could use the skylights to help defray the costs of operations and at the same time help keep some light into the facility. But the issue really comes down to the actual roof structure itself that is there, and it may not be able to support the skylights at this point, or excuse me, the solar panels. And so we're looking at and reviewing that to make sure that can happen. But I can have Mr. Montoya come up and visit with you some more.
If we get to that place today, I think I'd love to revisit with that, because I know we had structural engineers that did that work and that analysis for us. We submitted all those, and they were approved by the feds, and I know that was on the list of projects, and so I wonder, that was, and it was a $1.5 million for the roof on the convention center, and so I just want to be sure that we, if we're going to go one way or the other, that we don't double pay for that project, and that may free up some dollars for some of the other convention center needs. So I hope we can just revisit on how those projects intersect better, depending on where we go tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. Counselor Davis, one of my questions was answered regarding the solar panels on the roof of the convention center, but the city of Albuquerque and the taxpayers of this community have invested a tremendous amount of money in the convention center over the last few years. Under the previous administration, I think there was probably close to $25 million of improvements at the convention center, which is bringing in more conventions to the city of Albuquerque. And I'm pleased to see that the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board worked in getting that money for the convention center. And we want to try to help as much as we possibly can here. And I think there is a need for, additional money for the convention center. I know we've allocated $3 million. We are looking at some amendments here that would allocate a little bit more money to assist in some of the deficiencies at the convention center. So let's go and hopefully we can work through this.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Lorenzo Otero, and it looks like he may have left. Ken Quintana, followed by Dylan Rusvold, and the final speaker will be Twyla McComb.
Hello, Madam President and councilors. My name is Ken Quintana. I am a board member on Duke City BMX, and I just wanted to come and voice, my opinion on how the City of Albuquerque would need this facility, the pump track. Biking is one of the biggest things here in Albuquerque and in New Mexico. The biking community, I believe, at Duke City BMX has brought a lot of money to the lodgers tax with their annual national race that they have. I believe that our facility brings in the largest amount to the state with its annual national race, and that includes money to the lodgers tax. I believe that one of the reports, it was over 1,000 people coming to our motels here in Albuquerque for the national race. So the pump track is another national type race, and I believe it'll contribute in the same way as Duke City BMX has. Also, I am a father of a softball player, and I toted her around town for all her high school, junior high years. And, a lot of these softball fields, Albuquerque is not equipped to hold large tournaments like I've seen the softball fields in Phoenix. Rio Rancho has recently taken upon themselves to build the fields like at Sioux Cleveland. They have those four quad fields there, and they hold huge tournaments. I've seen people coming in from Vegas, Arizona, and we couldn't, and it didn't happen here in Albuquerque, and we could hold that type of events here with these appropriations. So with that being said, thank you very much.
Dylan?
Thank you, Madam President and council members. My name is Dylan Rusvold. I've been a member of the bike riding community for over 30 years. I'm a Navy vet, parent, been personally a member of this community for about 20 years. I just want to kind of piggyback off what Calvin has said, that the pump track at that location can be a national event, and it can, something that he hasn't, get a chance to bring up is that the turnaround for it is pretty quick. You really only need to build a couple of dirt hills, and then it's covered with asphalt, and your track is there. The rest of it is setting up lighting, parking, which could be done fairly easy. And the thing about the BMX track is if it goes in fast, it could help generate funds for the rest of the park. It's, like I said, it's a very fast turnaround. You know, the thing with these national competitions is Red Bull sponsors them, and they bring in people and advertising for the city. They talk about it online when they're streaming these things live. It's a great opportunity to get Albuquerque out there again and show everybody what we all know and how awesome this place is. We have some of the best weather in the country. We've always been bike friendly, and I just think this is another opportunity to continue that. And furthermore, like, for instance, they have one of these tracks in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. And for those of you who haven't been to the South, you know, consider yourself lucky, first and foremost. But one of these facilities is 2.5 hours away from an airport, and they built the track, and people showed up. We have an opportunity to get out ahead of something and have Albuquerque be in front of things for once, it seems like, and bring this in. This is the new discipline that's not really the overhead. I don't see it being much in the end, and the opportunity that could bring in is extremely beneficial. So I appreciate your guys' opportunity for allowing me to talk, and I think you guys should consider doing this. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Benton.
Sounds like you were involved in the kind of master planning for this thing, or?
Yeah, I've been around a little bit. Yeah.
How's the, I mean, what sort of spectator, I mean, is there kind of a plan for, I mean, is there
so a lot of times what they do,
bleachers or something like that, or?
Yeah, a lot of times what they do, Councilman, is they will grass around these bumps. People can get right up and watch them. The turns are such that, you know, they're this tall or so, but as Calvin told you, that's usually 1 or 2 people going around it at a time, and you can be right on top of it. And they'll also bring in bench stadium-style seating, kind of like how the skate park already has right there. But yeah, like I said, I think it's a great opportunity to get out in front of for not a whole lot of money, and it could generate for the rest of the park also. Thank you.
So our final speaker is Twyla McComb.
Good evening, Madam President and councilors. My name's Twyla McComb, and I'm with the Crestview Bluff Neighborhood Association in the southwest quadrant of Albuquerque. It sounds like there's some great things to be done with the lodgers' tax money all over the city. Improvements in Los Altos Park is wonderful. It's been there my entire life. BMX, I'm sorry, I don't know the right term for what the track is they want to do, but it sounds really cool to go watch and have a lot of fun. Improvements to the convention center, terrific idea. The visitor center for Route 66, a huge idea. And considering the amount of money that we're talking about spending, and I understand that it was the media who brought that number out, but that we're spending in projects that are in the Northeast Heights in downtown Albuquerque, I think that asking for $1 million of this project to go to the Route 66 Visitor Center is a small price to pay. The Southwest Mesa has, as a community, we have worked for years on our own to do things. The city of Albuquerque has not been friendly to that neighborhood for many projects. I would like to ask that this group be the first city council to step out of the, I hate to say it, but redlining and desperate treatment of the citizens of the Southwest Mesa. It is time that we make a change and be on all sides of Albuquerque and not just on one side of Albuquerque. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. McComb. So that was the final speaker on this. I do not have your name. It's for 077. No, we are actually on R19-197. No. So you're next. So, okay, well, with that, we have several amendments in front of us. And I think we will tackle the amendments first. We have amendment that's labeled A in your packet, will be floor amendment number 1. And I don't know if Councilor Sanchez or Borrego want to read it into the record. This is sponsored by all 3 of us. Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. This would be floor amendment number 1 to R-19-197. And it reads on line 1, on page 2, line 11, entitled Convention Center increase the amount by $1 million. Number 2, on page 3, line 8, entitled West Side Visitor Center, increase the amount by $500,000. Line 3, on page 3, line 8, strike the term Lodgers Tax Fund and replace it with miscellaneous revenue non-tax. And number 4, on page 3, after line 14, insert the following: surplus capital, miscellaneous revenue non-tax, $1.5 million. And the explanation for this is this amendment will increase the appropriation for the convention center from the lodgers tax bond proceeds by $1 million and will appropriate another $1.5 million of surplus capital, not lodgers tax funds, for the West Side Visitors Center project.
So there is a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of floor amendment number 1, say yes and raise your hand. Yes. Opposed, no? So the motion passes. So then
Madam President, I just want to clarify that this money is not being out of this lodgers tax bond, correct?
Correct.
Madam President, can we get the count on the votes again? Sorry, we didn't
If
see
you
some
could,
hands.
if you could raise your hand in favor, yes. Opposed, no. Okay, so now we are on, Councillor Winter, are you?
Thank you, and Mr. Melendez, you're going to have to clarify this, but this is basically what it's doing, is it's taking the original plan sent down by the mayor's office and changing what's in the bill now so that, and it also takes an extra $1 million that was surplus and puts it in the convention center. So it's R- on page 2, line 11, entitled Convention Center, increase the amount by $1 million. Page 2, line 15, entitled Los Altos Park, increase the amount by $500,000. On page 2, line 24, multi-use soccer facility, decrease the amount by $500,000. On page line 28, Jennifer Reardon Spark Kindness Complex, increase amount by $500,000. On page 3, delete lines 5 through 14. So the amendment will change the project appropriations to better match what was originally proposed by the administration when the bond ordinance 1977 was introduced. It also increases the amount for the convention center by $1 million to use the additional proceeds that have been identified for new projects that was originally estimated at $29 million to new estimates at $29 million. Sorry.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. So I need help understanding this, because what we've just done is with floor amendment 1 is we increased convention center by $1 million. So we took it from $3 million to $4 million, correct? And now if this floor amendment number 2 passes, we'll be increasing it by another $1 million. Is that correct? So then it'll be up to $5 million?
Madam President, Councillor Gibson, that is correct. However, I think we need to consider that this amendment in its entirety, and actually item number 5, is actually removing the West Side Visitor Center project altogether. So given the amendment that was just passed, I think it would be prudent to remove that line.
Yeah. And Madam President, I think the whole intent was to remove it from lodgers tax appropriations. So we can change that on this bill.
Councillor Borrego.
I'd like to ask on the Northwest Mesa Gateway, there's $500,000. It's being deleted.
Madam President, Councillor Borrego, yes, with the amendment number 2, the Northwest Gateway project would be deleted in entirety.
Why is that?
That was at the request of the sponsor.
Why is that, Councillor Winter?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. And my original was to just move it back to what the original was. I'm not sure if the administration wants to address that.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Rael first, and then to Councillor Sanchez.
Madam President and Councillor Borrego, the package that we sent down, the original legislation included money for this site, for this project. So it's already part of our project request.
So it is considered part of the resolution?
Madam President and Councilor Borrego, our original bill that we sent down to you all included.
I have the original bill.
Yeah, included the 500,000 for your, for the project on the west side.
Right. And
So we stand by that.
So you are, okay, I'm not understanding. Then explain it to me, please.
We continue to, Madam President, Councilor Borrego, we continue to support the project that is in the original legislation of 500,000 for the west side project.
Okay. So then why is it showing here as a negative?
Madam President, Councilor Borrego, what you're looking at is if this amendment passes as written, that's the effect it would.
So it remains in the resolution.
If this amendment passes written, it does not remain in the resolution.
That's
Yeah.
what exactly what I'm thinking, is that it does not remain. So essentially, it's deleting it. And I have, I've already worked out a deal with the Flood Control Authority to look at some land for this gateway. And so essentially, where would that money come from then? If I'm not getting anything, I mean, when we talk about lodger's tax and we talk about the petroglyphs and how many visitors go to the petroglyphs in 2016, there were 27,000 people that visited the petroglyphs. And that goes across Paseo del Norte. So I'm a little
Madam President,
Council-
Councilor Borrego, so I think the sponsor's intent was to take the projects back to the original list as provided by the mayor when the ordinance was introduced. So that's what this amendment is doing. So to the extent that it removes your project, I think you need to discuss that more.
Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question for Councilor Winter regarding the money for the convention center. In the previous amendment, we allocated the additional $1 million. And I'm not sure if you wanted to add the additional $1 million, or are we looking at $4 million, or are we looking at $5 million?
Madam President, Councilor Sanchez, I think that, I was not sure about your amendment to add more money. I think we ought to add as much as we can to the convention center. The point was, I think that there was what I was trying to do is really take the projects that really look like they fit the lodger's tax scenario and get those projects and not take away from Councilor Borrego or anything, but try to find like different money to fund those projects correctly, like what we did with Madam President's one. So that was what was my intent. Now, I guess there's not been any money identified for that project, but I think that was the intent of it.
So I'd ask the maker of the motion to consider an amendment. There's no such thing as friendly amendment, is there? An amendment. So an amendment to make the adjustment of the visitor center from 1.5 to 1 million and keep the Northwest Mesa Gateway. Yes, it was in the form.
Madam President, I'm not sure if I understand that, so I can have Mr. Melendez to explain that.
So I think the staff can explain that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Madam President and Councilor Winter, just give me 1 minute here to figure this out. So, sorry, this was a kind of multifaceted amendment. Sorry.
So from the First Amendment, it would basically read whatever the lines are from
Yeah.
the surplus capital miscellaneous
Yeah, so-
revenue non-tax, which is 1.5 now for the
Yes.
visitor center, that would be reduced.
Yeah, so it would read then on page 2, line 11, entitled Convention Center. I'm sorry, start over. Item 1 would read, on page 3, line 8, entitled West Side Visitor Center, decrease the amount by 500,000. And then All right, well, so I'm a little bit confused now because this,
Page 3, line 12, delete lodger's tax, replace with miscellaneous revenue, non-tax.
because this amendment hasn't passed yet, I don't, so we're working on two amendments at once, so.
It's actually an amendment to Counselor Winter's amendment, so, Mr. Rael.
Madam President and members of the council, just for clarification, your amendment is related to the First Amendment that was passed, in which we authorized the surplus revenues of 1.5 for the East Gateway, or the West Side Gateway, Visitor Center. What you are doing with your amendment to the amendment that we're considering now is taking $500,000 from the project that was for the tourism facility on the west side and authorizing that to be used for the Gateway project that
Yes.
Councilor Borrego wants in her district.
That is correct.
So that's out of the non-tax money that was approved in the previous amendment.
So you good with that?
Thank you, Madam President. So the money that you're transferring is out of the non-lodger's tax, and it's
Correct.
part of that?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And a point of
So-
clarification, Madam President, my apologies, trying to keep up with the math, and by doing that, it also allows Councilor Winters $1 million to add $1 million to the convention center and not mess up everything.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
I just want to be sure our math catches
Correct.
up with this. Thank you.
And I thank you, Counselor
you.
Pena.
So I think, okay, Counselor Gibson.
All right, so then we're also going to change item 5 on that amendment. We're not going to delete the last several lines then, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, so, sorry about this. Madam President, so if we're dealing with floor amendment 2, and we want to amend it to effectuate what you're talking about,
What am I talking about, Ms.
I'm not
Yada?
sure anymore. So, okay. I think that Councilor Winter still wants to bump the convention center project by $1 million. Okay.
Everything remains the same, except for the reduction of mine.
Then the math doesn't work. Yeah, we have an extra $500,000 then, so.
I think I know where that could go.
So, the amendment would read, as you're looking at it, we would maintain item 1, which is on page 2, line 11, entitled Convention Center, increase the amount by $1 million.
So that would now be 2 million,
Yes.
correct?
So yes, that would now be at 5 million.
Correct. Mhm.
On page 2, line 15, entitled Los Altos Park, increase the amount by $500,000. So that's 1.5. On page 2, line 24, entitled Multi-Use Soccer Facility, decrease the amount by $500,000. On page 2, line 28, entitled Jennifer Reardon Spark Kindness Complex, increase the amount by $500,000. So that, yeah, the math doesn't work. Yeah.
Counselor Winter.
Madam President, so what are we looking at, a surplus now from what this bill is?
So I'm actually,
'Cause it,
I would actually be short $1 million, given these changes.
yes.
No, I don't think that's accurate. Ms.
yes.
Nair.
Madam Chair, not to add another cook to this kitchen, but I had the same math as Stephanie. So basically, you're swapping out, you're decreasing the multi-use soccer facility by the same amount that you're increasing Los Altos Park, so think of that as one switch. Then you're increasing the indoor sports complex by the same amount as you're decreasing, as it currently reads, then the Gateway. And then you still are trying to appropriate another $1 million to the convention center, but there's no source for those funds because we've already spent those funds increasing it by $1 million in the last amendment.
Council.
So, Madam President, I actually have a suggestion, only because this is getting confusing for me to do on the fly here. There are a few more amendments that are looking to beef up the convention center project, if that's the ultimate goal. And perhaps we could hear those first and then come back to this one, Councilor Winter? Okay. So I guess, can we move to table floor amendment 2 for the time being?
So there's a,
I move to table floor amendment number 2.
there's a motion and second to table floor amendment number 2. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. So then we have C, which would be floor amendment number 3, but that actually increases. So then this would,
Madam Chair, I won't, I'm not going to put out these, either,
okay.
either C or D.
So C or D?
Right.
Okay, so remove C and D from your packets. Then we are on item E. This is Counselor Sanchez.
I'll pass.
So E is passing. F, Counselor Sanchez and Borrego.
Pass.
Pass. Now we're on G. Counselor Sanchez Borrego.
Pass.
Now we are on H. Counselor Sanchez.
This is floor amendment number 3 to R-19-197. And this amendment, it reads, number 1 on page 2, line 26, after the term multi-use soccer facility, insert the following on the city's website. On the city's website, this amendment will amend the scope of the multi-use soccer facility project to require that its location be on Albuquerque's west side, west of the Rio Grande.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Counselor Davis.
Thank you, Madam President, and I think we might as well just, if it's okay, just might as well discuss this and the next one as well, because they're sort of competing amendments here, although we have number 3 on the floor. You know, I think there's been a lot of discussion back and forth about where these projects should be located, and as I understand from the administration, I think there's a need to do a fiscal impact both at the location possibly on the west side, and then, of course, the county and county taxpayers have already invested $3 million in Mesa del Sol Regional Sports Soccer Complex, where the New Mexico United is currently doing their practice and is engaged, already under contract to do that again next year. And then there are some other considerations of other facilities. And so because this includes some projects for, say, the New Mexico United practice facility and other things already under consideration, I feel like we ought to do this at a spot that's already in process and not one that has yet to be built. So I would consider it better to do it along the plans that we have endorsed last year as part of our CIP program, where we supported the county's initiative to help build out the Mesa del Sol complex and help the city raise, the west side community raise capital outlay dollars to develop that site in future years. And so I would oppose it because I think we've already been working on a plan in this way, and I think it belongs in the east side. That said, the other amendment would put it in the southeast quadrant where we had currently been planning this, unless authorized by the city council, and that would give the administration the ability to do a fiscal impact and bring it back to us if they could show that it would be a better use of those funds somewhere else. And so for that reason, I would oppose it, but we've had that discussion, and I suspect we'll just have to have a vote.
And again, I guess we could also basically leave this out and work on the fiscal impact analysis to really find out where the best location is. I know that there has been $40 million invested in Community Stadium. There has also been $21 million invested in the Jennifer Reardon Sparks Kindness. We've got a $1.5 million appropriation for the indoor complex, and there's going to be $1.5 million on the bond for the indoor complex also, which would bring that project to $3 million. There is a tremendous amount of energy for that area. The location is ideal. And I myself, when I was serving on the Bernalillo County Commission many, many years ago, allocated some resources for a soccer complex at Mesa del Sol. That was close to 20 years ago. and not a lot has been done. But the city has done a tremendous amount of work in such a short period of time, working with APS, working with the city to build the complexes up on Albuquerque's west side. It's going to be a mega for sports facilities, and that's why I feel the appropriate place is on Albuquerque's west side. But I would basically yield and put this aside for now. Let's go and continue to work with the administration and looking for that fiscal impact analysis.
You know, I would prefer us to figure it out. I think we're not going to get there one way or the other. We're going to have a location in order to tell them where to do the fiscal analysis. So perhaps we say, put both locations in and ask for a fiscal analysis on both to come back to the council. I just want the council to be sure that we're involved in that conversation. And you're right. We have invested and partnered with the county on developing that site at Mesa with your help and the commission and others. There are 12 sites there, 12 fields there already. And tournaments there. So, you know, I certainly want to be sure we're investing in all parts of our city, and Mesa del Sol is part of our city that we haven't invested in decades. And we, you know, the United and our NMAA is already developing that site for this purpose. And so, you know, I think they've expressed their interest that this continue to invest there as well. So we could find a way to amend it to say to evaluate either one. I would be fine with that if that would please the sponsor.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that would make sense. Also, you know, I fully intend, no matter what we end up doing here, to ask the advisory board, the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board, to still weigh in on these projects, and they could weigh in on this as well, as far as I'm concerned. So I support that concept.
So, did you want to create that in a motion, or you just want to not introduce these?
I might ask the sponsor if he'd be okay with just a friendly amendment or whatever we want to do here, and just say,
So there is actually a motion on the floor. So I guess I'll have to defer to Councilor Sanchez.
No, but I agree with what Councilor Davis is saying. You know, for transparency purposes and a fiscal impact analysis, we can look at both sites, both Mesa del Sol and the Albuquerque West Side Sports Complex.
So you'd have to withdraw your motion and make another motion if that's what we're going to do, correct? Because there's a motion and a second on the floor right now.
Madam President, or Councilor Sanchez can amend his amendment.
Or we could vote on
I would
it,
ask-
whichever your call.
We can vote on both.
Madam President, I would just ask that maybe the Councilor Sanchez just amend his amendment that says a fiscal analysis of sites to be determined by the city council, and then we can all work that out with the administration, and we can come back and look at those together.
Well, I think the city council and the administration working with us.
That'd be great.
Did you get that?
Councilor Davis, could you say that again?
Insert the following, at sites evaluated by the city council and the administration.
Perfect.
Great, thanks.
So that's a motion and a second by Councilor Davis, if you will? Okay. No,
We've
no.
already got a motion.
He did not. He changed his,
So are you withdrawing your motion?
No, basically, we're
No,
amending the
he
motion to
amended the
basically
motion.
add additional language to have the administration and the council. Correct. Would be a separate bill.
actually, so floor amendment number 3, sorry. So there's a motion and a second for what was read into the record. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. So now, a motion to remove floor amendment 2, because that's the end of the amendments.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to take floor amendment 2 off the table. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Floor amendment number 2. Counselor Winter, this is your amendment.
you.
So if you want to do the math and figure it
Yeah,
out,
I'm
you're
going to let
on.
someone, but Madam President, but I think we have an option here.
Yes, Madam President and Councilors. So Councilor Winter would be requesting to amend Amendment 2 to have basically 2 lines. On page 2, line 11, entitled Convention Center, increase the amount by $500,000. On page 3, line 8, entitled West Side Visitor Center, reduce the amount by $500,000. The effect of this amendment would be that the Convention Center project would now be at $4.5 million. West Side Visitor Center would be at $1 million using the surplus monies. And Councilor Borrego's Northwest Gateway project would remain intact.
5K. Perfect. So are you good with that? So there was a motion and a second for floor amendment number 2, but then there was the amendment. So, so there's a motion and a second for the amendment to floor amendment number 2. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Now we are back on floor amendment number 2. Counselor Winter to close.
Thank you, Madam President, and thanks for the math lesson. I urge your support.
So there's a motion and a second for floor amendment number 2 as amended. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now we are back on Resolution 197 as amended. Any discussion? All those in,
Madam,
Counselor Benton.
just to reiterate, Madam Chair, would like to, unless there's any disagreement from the council, ask that the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board still convene and give us their opinions about where we are right now, where you see us going, and we still have the ability, as I understand it, to amend again after we consider your recommendations, if that's okay with the council.
Is everyone okay with that? Counselor Harris.
Actually, can I have some clarification? Because there's some confusion about what the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board does. I heard it talks about spending taxes, but not bonding. Is there, either Mr. Melendrez or?
Our bond counsel? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Madam President and Counselor Harris, just so I can weigh in a little bit. So the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board does advise the council and the administration on the use of the Lodgers tax revenue funds. However, these bonds would be paid by those revenues, so in that sense, they do have the ability to weigh in.
Okay, so they don't actually, okay, because I thought that
So-
they didn't do the bonds, but they did.
Okay, so can we have the bond counsel also?
Yep.
It looks like he's wanting to say something, so.
well, don't need to, but happy to, Madam President, members of the council. The section of the code that talks about the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board speaks in terms, as I read it, in terms of the part of the lodgers tax that goes to advertising, promoting, and supporting activities in the community. I don't disagree with Ms. Yara that you could read that as, a broad delegation of authority. I think historically, my recollection is that generally the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board doesn't have an advisory role as to capital projects, but, it's really your discretion, I think.
Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just also like to offer an apology to the innkeepers and LTAB as well. You were overlooked in this, and that wasn't right. You give up your time and your energy in working on LTAB and working in, I can't remember the name of the association, but you know what I'm talking about. And, work towards the profession and, towards the betterment of tourism in Albuquerque. So I think you're done a disservice, and I apologize for that. I wish that we had done that differently, but I would hope that you could look at what we end up with here this evening and make your own recommendations, and so that we can look at them and consider them in a future amendment. Thank you, Madam President.
So anyone else? No. I just want to kind of reiterate what everyone's saying. I think we have a huge opportunity now with the investment and what's happening in Santa Fe to really go to Santa Fe, because our Visitors and Conventions Bureau isn't just for the city of Albuquerque. People utilize it throughout the state. So, I would definitely be an advocate in terms of requesting money through the state legislature to help fix and fill that gap, and if not exceed it. So just want to say that. And with that, Councilor Jones.
Thank you. Sorry, haven't talked enough tonight. One of the major issues, where is the surplus capital coming from? It's surplus from what? Ms. Yara, maybe?
Madam President, Counselor Jones, I would defer to Mr. Montoya or Mr. Rael. They identified these funds. I'm not sure what their origin is. I'm guessing they're non-appropriated interest earnings, but.
Oh, good, Mr. Montoya is here.
Madam President, Councilor Jones, that is correct. So these are, it's surplus revenue, and that is generated from the sale of vehicles, the sale of property. So it's surplus capital that we appropriate for special projects, either during cleanup or special introduction for legislation.
Okay. And is there more? What if I want something in District 8, because we didn't get anything either?
Madam President and Councilor Jones, there is more. I think our fund balance in that account is roughly $4.8 million.
Awesome. So, Mr. Montoya, or whomever, why can we not use that for police cars and police equipment, which we're in dire need of, as we are with fire equipment? I understand they're needing at least one brush truck that's more than $1 million. Why do we not use that for something that we know we need every day?
President Pena, Councilor Jones, I mean, we can. Historically, we've done that through the cleanup process, and so that bill would historically would be coming down in a few weeks because we use that bill to, as you well know, to make the audit adjustments as required before the audit is complete. And at that point, if there is surplus capital, we can, we'll send down our recommendations and you'll negotiate them and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Ms. Nair, and I would hope that you would consider some of the equipment that we're lacking. Maybe our police officers wouldn't have to charge people when we respond to an accident on the highway if we are able to provide their equipment through excess unused money. So I think we've done a reasonably good job here. Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Does anyone else have? And then I have one more question, but not of him. Dan,
Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Montoya, not of you. And that is just the one that has been nagging me and people, is just bothering me, and people have heard me talk about it, and that is the West Side Visitor Center. And that is, until today, we've not seen anything that says what it kind of sort of maybe might be. But as I see the magnitude of what keeps being added to it, of different things and stuff and whatever, I'm concerned about what it is, if there truly is a plan for it. Is there truly a plan for actual cost? Is there, do we really know what it's going to be? Do we have any idea? I know it's being built on county land. Do we have any idea of who's going to own the building itself? Do we have a plan for who's going to manage it? Do we have a plan for who's going to pay the capital improvements on it when there are issues? Do we have a plan for if this doesn't work and we're not generating anything and our expenses are horrendous, or people don't show up? I mean, any number of things can happen. Do we not do a basic overview of these things with an estimate of cost, expenses, ongoing expenses, and how we handle this, and income? That is done basically in the private sector, or just is something that we don't look at? And I'm not sure who I could ask of that, but it's an issue that bothers me tremendously because it's just kind of bloomed in front of the council in the last few months. We don't have much information, and I am concerned and am not comfortable supporting something that is growing to this magnitude, and this is obviously only beginning from what I'm seeing about we're going to add this and this in the kitchen and this and this. I'm not sure what we're going with it, who's going to own it, who's going to pay for maintaining it. That's the one thing we always forget about our properties. Let's look at the convention center roof that is leaking in multiple places. If we're not caring for and preserving our physical buildings, how can we keep building more that we don't know what we're going to do with? So I do have some issues with this. I know that the lodger's tax, I hope that their board is comfortable, their advisory board is comfortable with this, but there are things here that I can't support. Thank you.
Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilor Jones, regarding your prior statement regarding the surplus of capital bonds, I think that this council has acted very responsible in the past in appropriating dollars for police, vehicles for fire apparatus. We've been very cautious and very diligent in the money that we have spent. So, I mean, I think that we will do so again this year when we look at the surplus and the capital budget, what is remaining, that we do address those issues.
Any other comments? So I will close. I just really want to say that I just find it so interesting that, you know, Councillor Jones, if you had been paying attention, you would have learned about this visitor center several years ago. This is something, as some people made public comment, is that this visitor center has been in the works for probably almost 20 years. This has been a community-driven project, much like as some of the public comment was, is that, you know, unfortunately, many of the folks from the southwest area of Albuquerque have had to go out and advocate for some of these things that are important to them because they really didn't have the support, whether at the city or wherever else it may be. And so with the visitor center, it has not changed. You know, I did call or send a letter to KRQE to actually send ask for a rebuttal on the comments they made in terms of the $3.4 million. It is not growing. It hasn't grown. It's always been the size that it is. The community came together many years ago and they wanted to think big for their area. And they said that it was important because they felt, for all the reasons that Twyla said, that we were underrepresented, misrepresented perceptions of the area, and that they wanted to do something in our community to think big. So they came up with this concept of the West Fest, so that they didn't just get input from a board of directors, but that they got input from the community. So as I've said, year after year, every time we have the West Fest, that it's actually a community meeting disguised as a fiesta. And through that, you know, we get hundreds of surveys back from community members talking about some of the things that they want in their community, whether it be the library that is there now. Again, this is something that is community driven, that the community took the time because they felt that they weren't heard and went and advocated for the dollars to ensure that those things happen. And the same holds true for the fire station. So with the community center, it has always been, the reason everybody has been stuck on the fact that it's a visitor center is because they came together and they said, you know what, we want to do something in our community that's important for not only us, but for the city as a whole. And we want it to be a place where people come from all around to visit our community, to create a destination place where some folks feel that they don't even want to come to the southwest area of Albuquerque. It would become an economic driver, and it would be something where people could have pride in, and people from the southwest area of Albuquerque would have somewhere to actually be able to have a meeting space, to be able to have a venue. You know, we literally have to cross the river in order to be able to have, whether it be a wedding or the like. This is something that the community has worked on for like I said, like almost 20 years. And the reporter that reported on this, she sent me the thing that she referenced from December 21st, 2016 of the amount. And the amount didn't say that that was the total amount of the project. That was the amount that had been secured thus far. And even in here, it stated from myself that I promised to carry out the community's vision when I became a city councilor, and the visitor center has been one of my main priorities. It will help to stimulate private and public investment, create jobs, and bring brighter prosperity to the west side of Albuquerque. The visitor center I lost my space. Anyway, so it says in there, I lost the paper. But anyway, in the paper, it just says that the $3.4 million, it was a starting point. So I just want to say that. I just urge your support, and I just find it interesting that a councilor from the far northeast has something to say about an area that's underserved in our community, and the fact that in the paper that, you know, in the news article that you talked about the needs, and I just want to answer that. I wasn't going to this evening, but, you know, working on the smaller issues that we have in our community. Since I've been in office, there's 6 new parks, improvements to 2 new parks. We have the Westgate Community Center that should be breaking ground in March of 2020. We have a respite center to help serve our senior community that should be breaking ground here by the end of the year. The list goes on and on. So thank you. I urge your support for R 197. I closed the floor already, Councillor Gibson. Thank you. So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes? Yes. Opposed, no? So that's 8-1. Now we are on 077, Counselor Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. 077 authorizes the issuance and sale of the City of Albuquerque tax refunding and improvement revenue bonds in 2 series in aggregate principal not to exceed $47 million. I move a do pass.
There's a motion and second for 077. Is there any discussion? Anybody signed up for public comment? There are 2 people signed up to speak. Mr. Charlie Gray, followed by Jim Petty.
Madam President, Councilors, my name is Charlie Gray. I'm the Executive Director for the Greater Albuquerque Hotel and Lodging Association, and also a past General Manager of 2 properties here in Albuquerque, the Albuquerque Hilton and the Sheraton Uptown. My association, my Board of Directors, is asking for a deferral tonight on this, on 077, so that we will have a chance to have input from our members and from our Board of Directors. I kind of lost track on the math in the previous amendments. My mother said I should have taken more math in school, and I guess I lost it. I think we ended up with 4.5 for the convention center.
That's correct, but maybe we should defer to Counselor Winter because he said he got a math lesson. So what is it, Counselor?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, 4.5.
4.5. Well, I know the recommendation by the director of the convention center is 6.5, I believe. And I hope that we can find another $2 million somewhere along the line to supplement that. And the reason I'm saying that is that part of my hotel background was in Tucson, Arizona, and I know what a competitive city Tucson, Arizona is. I learned a couple of weeks ago that Tucson's convention center has been approved for a $26 million improvement. $26 million improvement. So we don't want to be left behind at our convention center. We want to be state-of-the-art because conventions bring in high-paying guests. And this would give Visitor Albuquerque a chance to book these conventions. So I urge you to consider additional monies for the convention center. And to close, there isn't much more I can say except that we employ, the hospitality industry employs 44,000 citizens of Albuquerque in our industry. And this is such an important industry that we want all of the monies we can get to promote tourism and give Visit Albuquerque a chance to promote tourism.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Benton.
Yes, I just want to reiterate what President Pena said earlier, which is I will do the same. And we can go to the legislature and we will continue to look within our own budgets. It's certainly a priority for me, I can tell you that. And I'll also look at the one project that is in District 2 that's not the convention center, which I consider to be a citywide facility, and see exactly how much we're going to be able to move forward with that in the immediate future, and you know, anything that cannot be spent in the near future, I certainly support placing towards the convention center. So
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Counselor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President. Also, I just really want to acknowledge and praise the participants of this industry, the innkeepers, both large enterprises and the small ones. They are such a huge part of the economy here in Albuquerque, and really the quality by which you hold your standards to ensures people that will come back, ensures, you know, return visitors and tourists and guests of ours here in Albuquerque. So thank you very much.
Jim Petty? Are we on the right one, sir? All
I
right.
think so. Now it's very complicated and confusing to me. But anyway, I'm kind of concerned too. I'm kind of agreeing with Ms. Jones here. I think this needs to go to the voters. I don't understand why it wouldn't go to the voters when you're looking at spending this amount of money on so many different projects. I think it should be a voter thing. And then, you know, there's ever concerns about where's the public library at the Caravan nightclub? It's still not built. What about Central needs repaving between Louisiana and Wyoming? It's a very bad road between there. What about San Pedro, Wyoming? Gibson has tons of potholes. It seems like we have lots of other needs that we need to address before we build any more projects. And then there's also a lot of recurring costs. Like if you rebuild the Los Altos, you're going to have maintenance, and it's not being maintained now. The skate park is in really disrepair. It's like there's litter all over the place. The fences are broke. The parking lot is crumbling. It's like, so you're going to have a lot of recurring expenses also. You know, what about the business park, the Gibson Business Park at Girard and Gibson? It's just it's just a lot filled with weeds. You know, it's like, where's the little houses at the Indian Center at Texas and Zuni? I thought they were supposed to be built already. So it seems like we have a lot of other needs and concerns that we need to be concerned about. It's a great idea, of course, but I think we need to like consider about all these other things we've already voted on. And like, I still don't understand why the library is not there on Central, where the old Caravan nightclub used to be. You know, and it's like, I really think this needs to go to the voters. It would seem like it should be a voting issue. It seemed like it shouldn't be rushed. Like Ms. Jones says, you know, I think it really needs to go to the voters, because this is quite a bit of money to be spent. And of course, the recurring costs. You know, are you going to maintain the Los Altos Park? Are you going to maintain this new pump track, which sounds really good, but they'd have to be maintained too, and it's going to cost a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Davis.
Yes, sir, and I just wanted to remind you, and thanks for bringing that up, actually, the final dollars for our library are on the bonds that you can vote for on November, and if you vote for them, we'll build it, and there's $10 million in southeast area road improvements on your bonds as well, and our quarter-cent transit tax, and so we hope you'll approve those so we can fix those potholes on Central and Gibson, so tell your neighbors, please.
I'm saying this should be like on a bond issue too. It
Sure.
really seems like it should be.
Thanks.
You know what I'm saying? Because it involves a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, that is our final speaker, so we are on 077, and I think there was a motion in a second, but we need to move the floor sub, Councilor Davis. So,
I would move the floor sub, Madam President.
so there's a motion and a second for floor sub of 077. All those in favor say yes. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Back on the bill if no one has any questions. Councilor Davis.
Urge your support.
So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. So now we are on R186. Councilor Borrego.
Councilors, this is extending the moratorium, which just expired last month in the area of Irving Boulevard from Cayenta Place to Rio Los Pinos Drive through December of 2020. And I just want to thank the people that are here from my district that have waited patiently all night for this to be at the end of the agenda, and I apologize to you for that, but I know that you're here to support it, so thank you.
So there's a motion and a second. So we have one person signed up to speak, Mr. Pete Reiser. I have just a few more items, folks.
Well, thank you, councilors. I'm Pete Reeser. I'm a member of the Irving Residence Committee. And I don't intend to take up much time. I'm going to read a single sentence from R-17-228 that initiated the original moratorium. Whereas, through the planning process, it was determined there are significant issues to be resolved, and that such issues will require a number of years of effort between the city of Albuquerque and the affected residents, and may result in solutions that require more substantial capital investment than the city is able to achieve in the near future. Well, nothing much has changed in the last 2 years the moratorium was in effect. And the effort mentioned is hard to detect at the moment. And so we are certainly in favor of extending the moratorium for another year, and we hope that dialogue with the municipal development and the residents resumes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So are there any questions, comments? Counselor Borrego to close.
I urge your support.
All those in, motion and second, all those in favor say yes. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We are now on item 15, other business. OC 37, Internal Audits Annual Report for fiscal year 2019. I move receipt be noted. There's a motion and second. Any discussion? Signed up to speak. Counselors? Counselor Sanchez, sorry.
Thank you. I had a question in the Finance Committee, and I said I would wait to address the question until it came to full council. And the only question I had, and I think I've received some clarification on that through Mr. Perea and part of the team, was based on the number of audit hours that we had. I think it was 6,803 hours. I think there are a total of 8 employees. I'm not sure if they've got those positions all filled, because I multiplied that 2,080 times the 8 employees, and that came out to a little over 16,000 hours. We've got 6,803 hours that were allocated towards audits.
Council President Pena, Councilor Sanchez, that's one part of the org chart I don't really have control over, but I know I approve them as soon as they send them up.
Okay, sounds good. But they do a great job for us. I mean, I'm looking through some of the reports, and the work is always very thorough and comprehensive.
There's a motion and a second for receipt be noted. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next item is OC 38, the Office of Inspector General's Annual Report for fiscal year 2019. I move receipt be noted.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion, public comment, comments? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. There being no further business, this city council meeting is adjourned.